Hello, I'm James Harvey, the professor of music theory at the College of Southern Nevada with 5-minute music theory. Let's go ahead and start the timer and head over to a blank page, no staves this time. And we're going to talk about some new note values that were not introduced in the last video on note values. But just to quickly review, we had the whole note, which looked like a note head hollowed out with no stem. And then we had the half note, which looked like a whole note with a stem. And then I'll go one more step to the quarter note. We're not even going to worry about eighth notes or anything faster than that right now. Now, when we divide the whole, it becomes two half notes. And actually, these two half notes would take up the same amount of rhythmic space or time as that whole note, just as 4 quarter notes would take up that time. Well, what about a note that's worth 3 quarter notes? That's not represented here. There is such a note, and it's something that's called a dotted note. So if we take one of these notes, like a half note, and I'm going to draw it in that little tiny space that I put in there, and I add a dot next to the note head, this is known as a dotted half note. And a dotted half note is actually equal to 3 quarter notes, when a regular half note's only equal to 2. This one's equal to 3. So now let's talk about how to figure out the value of a dotted note. You can put a dot on any note value and it lengthens it by a specific amount, and we'll talk about the steps and how to do that. It's actually quite easy once you learn the steps. We don't really need that anymore. There are 3 steps to it. The first step is to, well, first of all, let's take as an example a dotted half note. So there's our note. And then the first step is to remove the dot. And when I say remove the dot, I just mean to imagine what the note would be without the dot. And if we did that, we would just have a regular half note with no dot. And then to find half the value of step 1. So if we take that half note and we chop that into half, we know from earlier that if you chop a half note in half, it becomes 2 quarters. So I take one of those, and that's half of a half note. I know it's a lot of fractions. If you're not strong with your fractions, you might want to do a little review, because this is all fractions. So half of a half is a quarter. So then we have a quarter for step 2, and then it's as simple as taking steps 1 and 2 and add them together. Add steps 1 and 2. So step 1, we add a half note, and then step 2, so I'll put 1 over there. And then on step 2, we add a quarter note. That's step 2. Therefore, a dotted half note equals a regular half note plus a quarter. And if we do this same thing and apply the same logic to a different kind of a note, we'll figure out how long it is. Again, you can put a dot on any note value, and it lengthens it by this specific amount. So let's take, how about a dotted quarter? So that's going to be our note that we're going to determine its duration. I was going to say distance, its duration. So we remove the dot. You're left with just a blank quarter note there. Half of a quarter note is an eighth note. There's the eighth note. And then add those together, and you have the length of that dotted quarter note. And there you go. It's really as simple as that. You just need to remember these steps, and you can figure out the length of any dotted note. Thank you.